why I first got involved in this work went back to my own education. I remember being a student, and I was fortunate to have one of the best public educations in the United States of America. But I remember being on a mission trip. I remember helping with Hurricane Katrina. We were picking up rubble, just trying to assist in communities with these homes that were decimated. I remember talking to different community members and just not understanding why homes wouldn't be rebuilt automatically by insurance companies or by the federal government, and why folks were left homeless for years. And there started to kind of poke holes in this fabric or this veil that I was looking for about this world that I was told and how it worked. And it became very apparent to me that the image that was kind of taught and that gets replicated and spread around folks in my own community, and I think a lot of folks around the world that live in different pockets and at different kind of stratospheres, if you will, is that a lot of this work, a lot of the situations that people are in are the fault of their own, and not the fault of the failure of a system. And so when I started noticing one hole, I started noticing other holes. And so it wasn't too much longer. I ended up going to college, and I wanted to study education, and I dropped out on the first day. And I didn't, it wasn't sexy at the time. I think I didn't have a carefully curated next step plan. I didn't have a hot startup that I was trying to take to market. But I was finding that I didn't think that I could learn the way that I wanted to in an academic institution at the time. And so I thought it'd be best to be learning from people on the other side of the world, both in my own community and on the other side of the planet. And so I found myself volunteering for a year, volunteering in Detroit, where I'm from, volunteering, and I got placed in Uganda, and I got placed in an internally displaced persons camp, or a refugee camp, refugee in your own country. And learning so much more about how the rest of the world works and how my own country's actions affect the rest of the world, but also how many other systems however many holes there are in that same fabric. And I think once we had the opportunity to reframe that, I started to realize the important role that I can play and the responsibility that I and many others have to try to create a more equitable world in which our world is richer for the better. I want more diversity in the world and in our children's education. I want a higher quality of education. I think the multitude of ideas and the diversity of ideas that would emerge would solve so many of the world's other problems. And that goes anything from governance to climate change to intercultural existence. If you remember nothing else, remember that if you're recognizing a hole in your own fabric, I hope that you lean into it instead of try to sew it back up. There's an activist that I like a lot, and a quote that I like from her called Lilla Watson. And the quote goes, "If you come here to help me, then you're wasting your time. But if you come because your liberation is bound in mind, then let us work together." And I think when you recognize the opportunity that sometimes we need to open the fabric and realize a new reality, our world will be better off as a result of that if we all work together. It's not necessarily sacrificial and giving. A lot of times when we talk about responsibility to give back, quote unquote, it sounds like this is something that is not a requirement of each and every one of us. It's not about giving back to others. It's about giving forward for all of us. And so I think it is incumbent upon each of us to recognize the role that we can play in our own families, our own communities, our own institutions and organizations that we work with, but in our societies together. And if you want to be part of a society that reflects these values, you need to be willing and able and constantly doing something about it every single day.